welcome Michael Moynihan, who's the head of the upper school at the Heights, and has been there how many, 20 plus years?
Since 1995.
1995, 21 years. Is that right? Did I get that right? He has 11 children. The youngest is celebrating 2-month birthday today, 2-month anniversary.
2 months old.
So when the youngest gets to 3, you'll have a television set. That's okay. That was a joke. So our topic, Michael's topic, is how fathers teach human sexuality to their sons. So please welcome Michael Moynihan.
So I understand I have the option of standing or sitting, and that one speaker stood and the rest of them have sat so far. Well, I think I'll take the sitting option here. It's good to be with you all here, and this is I think a very important topic to discuss. The role of the father in mentoring his sons in matters of human sexuality. Very timely topic. It's a broader topic than just what sometimes people refer to as the talk, because there's more in a father's role in mentoring his sons than just giving the talk. It's actually it's a lot of things. It does include talks, more than one talk, and it's been an exciting adventure over the course of my children. I'm thinking of my sons right now. Of my 11, 7 of them are boys. My oldest 2 are boys, Michael and Thomas. Michael is a freshman in college, and then I have Thomas is a senior at the Heights, Teresa is a junior at Oakcrest, and then they kind of go all the way down to 2 months old. So we're pretty busy, and it's chaos and good chaos. A bit about myself. I'm originally from upstate New York. I met my wife as an undergraduate in college at the University of Notre Dame. I live in Rockville, Maryland, and as Daryl said, I'm very happy to work at the Heights School and to have my sons go there. Last year I had, with my oldest that currently went off to college, I had 5 sons there covering exactly half of the grades at the school. And this year I'm down to 4 sons because 2 of my boys are pretty young. So I would say that the topic of fathers helping their sons to get the correct vision and the correct view and to live this vision of the truth of human love, really, of their human sexuality, is crucially important today, because if fathers don't do this, if we don't take some type of active role, some type of thoughtful role in doing this, basically what's going to happen? I mean, our sons are going to pick up some vision of human sexuality, and if they don't pick it up from us, the world around them is likely where they're going to get it from. The truth of the matter is that God created us male and female. He has an amazing plan. There's a complementarity between men and women. This is very good. Marriage is an incredible institution, even on the natural level, that deserves a tremendous amount of respect. And on the supernatural level, for the baptized, it's a great sacrament. It's something that's very holy. And so sex itself is not evil. It's something that's profoundly good, and it's a great good that's meant to be lived out in the context of marriage. Just in a nutshell, I mean, that's the truth we all know. Now, the lies on this topic, well, I don't think I need to get into the specifics of the lies that are out there. I mean, we all know sort of the vision that the world has of this. The one thing I will say is that the strategy here of the devil, who's the father of lies, and kind of really to attack this great good thing, does so with a lot of half-truths. And I would say that a lot of what's out there in the world is mostly a corruption of the full meaning of human sexuality by some type of reductionism, some type of taking the full meaning and reducing it to only one thing, taking it out of context and trying to pervert it in that way. An interesting story, St. John Paul II was once asked by somebody, kind of in a challenging way, why is it that you have so many pictures of naked people all around the Vatican? This is scandalous. The Vatican, it's basically got pornography everywhere, was kind of the implication. And John Paul II, very, very wise and just right on, he said, pornography is not pornography because it shows too much. Pornography is pornography because it shows too little. And that's really what it is. The essence is the reduction of the human person to some type of objectification of that person, to making him or her just an object to be viewed in a certain way outside the context of who they really are as a man and a woman who has a family, a woman who's she grew up in a family, she has a father and a mother who loves her, she's made in the image and likeness of God and made for holiness. And so it's really this reductionism that is so easily picked up, whether it's picked up even on the playground as the kids are playing and they're talking about this and that, and they talk about something in a bad way, or in many other ways. So what should we do? What can we as fathers do? Well, I would say that from a very young age, just the fact that we love our wives is a tremendously good thing for our children. They see that. They see that mom and dad love each other. They see that there is affection between mom and dad, and right away, like these little boys, they just see that as a great good thing. The fact that mom and dad love each other enables me to just kind of go off and do the things that I do, and I might think that girls that have cooties or whatever, I want nothing to do with them, but I can go out and play around and dig holes in the ground and chase after bugs and squirrels and do whatever little boys do. Build their little forts with sticks and stuff like that. If a father once in a while even goes beyond that and says something along the lines of, I am so lucky that when I asked mom to marry me that she said yes. See, I knew she was an amazing woman, and I saw her, and she had these great qualities. And there was one day, and let me tell you about it. We were, I got down on one knee, I proposed to her, and she said yes, and it's just a tremendously good thing. I mean, just to have that be, kind of the message that they grow up with at first. And I would say that just that type of respect and that type of love that naturally occurs in a family where husband and wife love each other, that is adequate up to a point, up to a certain age. Now, the question is, what age is that? I don't know, we say at the heights, for most of the little guys, we see them down in the valley, they're doing their things. One of the things they study down in the valley is natural history. And so the valley's in this wooded setting and there's all these animals around, and one of the things they love to do is go out and try to catch animals, and they get them in their cages, and then every once in a while they talk about how animals have baby animals and stuff like that, and sort of you can see it in a class of guys down there that some of them have some idea of what this means, and some of them have no idea whatsoever about what it means. But usually around 4th grade, I would say, is when they're starting to be, a little bit curious about that. And I think I, pulled my oldest son aside when he was in 5th grade. And so Michael was pretty clueless at that point. He'd been down in the valley at the heights, and I think he thought about things a little bit, but not too much. And so I told him, I said, Michael, I wanted to go and have a walk, just you and I, and there's just some things I wanted to talk about. And Michael's like, okay, Dad, fine. So we'll do that this Saturday. And so Saturday came around, and we got in the car. I think we drove to the grocery store and got a little treat, like a donut or something. And then we went to this park that basically, not a lot of people go to. It's called Lake Frank. There's a lot of trails that just kind of meander through the woods and stuff. And so we got out and we started to walk around, and I just said, Michael, what I wanted to do is I wanted to basically tell you a little bit about this amazing plan that God has. God has this plan for men and for women. And he was like, okay, yeah. And so, you talk to him, and little guy's portrait, you don't have to go into all kinds of details. In fact, I think it's best at that age to keep things somewhat general. You can start by not so much leading with the mechanics. See, I think if you just lead just very simply like that, like God has a plan, you're right off the bat putting this in the proper context. And when a little guy hears from his father that, God has a plan about this, all of a sudden, the whole notion that this is perverse, that there's something twisted about this, that is an incredible protection against the mind kind of becoming complicated about that. Because he sort of sees it right in the right context from the very start. Very powerful to get in there. A lot is made in the business world even about there's this important message and it's a potentially problematic message, and so what do businesses do? They hire a public relations firm and they figure out the best way to get that message out first. Okay, well, the truth is something that's incredibly attractive, it's incredibly good, and this truth about the meaning of human love to our sons is something that we can get across first in a very natural way like that. So I basically just said, God has a plan, and there's something called the marital embrace. Again, not getting into mechanics necessarily, but if a guy asks questions, answer him. It's not a problem. It's just that today, like one of the forms I would say that reductionism takes today, and this is huge in education, just in general, is people are too impressed by efficient causality. They're too impressed by mechanisms. When more broadly speaking, the full scope of our reason is to take into account so many other things like that. We've got to be able to take into account the nature and the form of things. Formal causality, final causality, material causality, and there's so much more than that. So to just think that if we understand the mechanisms behind anything, that we understand all there is to understand about something, that's a problem. And in some way, I guess that might even, that type of reductionism that we owe thanks to Descartes and Bacon and other people from history of philosophy, that makes it, in a way, even more important that we try to place things in their full context right from the start. But in any case, I'm digressing here. So the important thing, the marital embrace, and tell a little bit about how you met your wife. Talk about how boys and men are different, and there's going to be these natural changes that God has planned for men as they grow up, and it's a good thing. Your body's going to be going through these changes. You're in 4th grade right now, 5th grade right now, whatever. You got a ways to go, but it'll happen, and it'll be good. And then, just let him know. You have any questions? See what he says. And some guy might have a lot of questions, and if he has questions, you answer him. Great. One of the questions I remember Michael asked me was, he said, Dad, okay, so I think I did mention that this is a great, good thing, God's plan, but it's also something that is under attack. The devil really wants to get in there and wants to corrupt this, and there's a lot of things out there that are not good, and you can tell that because people sometimes are trying to just show, whether it's even on just magazine covers in the supermarket, they're trying to show people in a way which is just not as respectful. It's like you look at that and you're like, is that the way that mom would mom want to dress like that and stuff like that? And you're like, no, and they get it right away. The kids have a sense of this, even though they're so little. And then Michael's like, okay. He goes, well, Dad, yeah, this reminds me. There's one thing I kind of wondered about. People talk about this gay marriage. What is that? I'm like, oh, geez. I answer him like the best I can and tell them, again, got to be really serious. We are actually in a war, okay? I mean, this is an incredible battle that's raging around us, and I think it's okay to tell children that good and evil, these are real. But basically the thing is, you need to stand up for what's right. And if you're on the playground or whatever, a kid starts talking bad about women, you just tell them, men don't talk about women that way. Stop it. And so Michael kind of got that, and we got through, and it was great. It was great. Afterwards, I'm like, wow, that went pretty well. I was kind of nervous beforehand, and I was like, okay. So, and then just one of the last things I told Michael was, on the way back, I said, now, your younger brother Thomas is 16 months younger than Michael. He's going to wonder why I went and took you for a walk and talked to him and stuff like that. And all I want you to tell him is that Dad has some stuff he wanted to talk to me about. Later on, he'll talk to you, but right now, it's none of your business. And for that matter, if any of the kids at school, start talking about this is something that's best talked about between a father and a son. It's not something that you want to go and try to teach. And Michael's like, oh yeah, I got that. So fine. So we get home, and Thomas, sure enough, he's like, Michael, what did Dad do? What happened? And he starts pestering him, and all Michael would turn and go, Thomas, I am not going to tell you. Drove Thomas crazy. It drove him crazy. He was coming to me, he's like, Dad, you gotta, what is this? What is this thing? You going to talk to him about? And so finally I'm like, all right, Thomas, next weekend, Saturday, we'll do it. Thomas was in 4th grade, so at the time. So the next weekend, Saturday, I go and I have to talk with Thomas. Very similar to Michael. And it was good. I mean, you get in there first, okay? And you set the context for things. And then, you kind of keep an eye on how the guys are going. Once in a while, if they have any questions, you've at least opened yourself up and you said, look, if you have any questions, you can come to me. I'll be happy to take these questions. That's great. And I would say that even if things seem to be going great, like as a father, you look around, you're like, okay, there's no problems here, no areas of complication. Still, every once in a while, it's good just to check in, just to ask them, do you have any questions? Remember when we had that talk? Do you have any other questions, anything like that? And maybe every 16 months, every year, 2 years, I don't know. It's good to go out and just have another talk with them. And so I've done that now also with Joseph and Stephen, my next 2 sons after Michael and Thomas. And again, they went well with the first talks. My next son, John Paul, is a 4th grader this year, so that's coming up before too long again. But then on some of the subsequent talks with Joseph and Stephen, I remember there was one thing that I had this idea that, because one of the things that the guys that happens, and you think about it from the perspective of a little boy, like if they see something that is really wrong, that is portraying women in a completely off way, that is just kind of bad content, they don't know how to process that. Like they have no clue. Like from their perspective, they see that and they're like, there was this, somebody was saying there was this getting a story, I think it came from The Simpsons. There's a talk I heard, somebody was talking about, I think it might have been Bart Simpson. I didn't remember seeing this, but the person giving the talk said this, that Bart apparently saw this really bad picture, this really bad image, and he goes, ooh, that's disgusting, yet it's strangely attractive and compelling at the same time. But that's kind of you can just see from the little guy's perspective, they don't know any better. And so I think one thing that fathers can do is that they can help to, you guys are little warriors, okay? You're little soldiers, and this is a crusade, a manly crusade for keeping a clean heart, for really respecting women, for really loving as a man should. And if you're around your friends and one of your friends pulls out a cell phone and on that cell phone there's a really, really bad picture, Joseph, what I want you to do is I want you to grab that cell phone. I want you to throw it on the ground, and then just to make sure that the thing is totally smashed, I want you to stomp on it. And then I want you to turn to that boy, and I want to say, if you have a problem with that, tell your dad to call my dad, and then walk away. All right. So I did that with Joseph and Stephen when I talked with them. And right off the bat, both of them had the same reaction. They got this little smile on their face. And I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? But the thing is that I'm like, guys, I am serious about this. I am serious about this, but you make sure that you're not smashing somebody's phone unless it's the right thing to do, okay? Like, so I've never got a phone call yet, they've never smashed anyone's phone. But, you know, I mean, it's funny, I mean, even child predators sometimes, this is horrible to think about, but what they'll do, like one of their strategies is to leave out some inappropriate material, and then they'll leave it out somewhere where they know a kid will come by and see it. And then once the kid sees it, and the kid freezes up, I doesn't know what to do about it, you know, takes it into himself, kind of feels a little bit rotten inside, and then the predator comes and kind of, you know, so what happened? Why are you upset? And he uses that as the in, because they're already felt somewhat compromised by it. I mean, fathers need to empower their sons. You know, look, guys, you see something that's not right, respond strongly to it. You know, smashing the phone. Somebody's looking at an image they shouldn't do, reach out, grab it, rip it, you know, respond strongly. This is one of those times where a knight needs to draw his sword. I mean, this is the dragon that, you know, you need to be able to respond strongly to. And likewise, you know, be courageous if other guys are saying things that are not right, okay? And you know, stand up for the truth here. You know, practically speaking, on the playground or wherever you are with your buddies, whatever. So there's that. Now, in some of the subsequent conversations that you'll have with your sons, and like I said, maybe every 2 years, maybe every year, whatever, you kind of know as a father, but you should try to connect with each one. And don't make the conversation necessarily only about this. I mean, you can talk about other things too, but do circle back to this. There's other things to bring up, especially as they're getting close to puberty. You want to talk to them about the virtue of chastity, the virtue by which we possess ourselves so as to be able to love others with the pure love that God has poured into our hearts. You know, this idea that you know, we're called to have clean hearts. We're called to guard our hearts. St. Josemaria would say, you know, keep your heart locked with 7 locks, so that, you know, it has that integrity, so that it can truly love as a man's heart. Yeah, when I told some of the boys the story from the Bible of King David, and I said, you know, look, King David is somebody who is described by Scripture as a man after God's own heart. But yet this guy really royally messed up. He was not out with his army doing what he was supposed to do. Rather, he was out kind of looking around at night. He saw Bathsheba. He really shouldn't have. And one thing led to another. And pretty soon he's conspiring to get Bathsheba's husband Uriah killed. And then there was this guy, Nathan, who was a prophet, who went up to David and basically told him this story, which was really him, you know, in his story in another form. And David, to his credit, saw how wrong what he did was, and he turned back to God. And you guys got to know that God is incredibly rich in mercy. If there's ever a real problem in this area, go to confession, okay? I mean, God can do amazing things in a person's heart. It's never too late. There are people who have lived horrible lives and yet have become tremendously great saints. So you guys know that, right? You guys know how powerful the love and the mercy of God is. Okay, so don't ever, you know, become super complicated thinking that, you know, you mess up and that's the end of it, right? So you start talking to them a little bit more as a father would about these things. You know, the modesty. I mean, boys should probably be wearing their shirts around, even if it's around the house. I mean, sometimes guys won't want to sleep in their shirts, fine, but they can wear their pajama shirt or their t-shirt before they get into bed. You know, at some point, as they're getting close to puberty, you got to tell them a little bit more about puberty. You got to say that there's these things called nocturnal emissions. And again, this is all part of God's great plan, and it'll happen. And there'll be, you know, semen will build up, and you'll have that nocturnal emission at night. And you haven't done anything wrong, okay? That's just happens to everybody. It's happened to me. It's happened to, you know, all kinds of guys, all guys. And you know, the thing here is it's while it's not sinful at all to have that nocturnal emission when you're sleeping, doing anything to try to bring that about on your own, whether it's using your imagination in that way or doing anything yourself, that is really a problem. I mean, that's the sin of masturbation. So it's very wrong to stimulate oneself in any way yourselves, but when you're sleeping, you know, it's different. So you kind of go through that, and you know, you tell them about that, and you know, you let them know that you know, Our Lady is there, to be close to her. I mean, she is a tremendous source of help for guys in this area, and just to be really devoted to her, pray to her along those lines. Okay, so you keep close to your sons. They kind of make it through that time. You know, sometimes it's going to be little rough patches, but if they can always go back to their dad and talk to their dad, you know, things will go a lot better for them. They'll feel more comfortable. They'll have the big context in place, and they'll know what they can do. They can go to a priest in confession, go to their dad if there's any problems. As fathers, we also need to be on top of certain certain details in the home. Okay. Now, it used to be that, you know, one of the big problems might have been magazines and pictures, and not that they aren't problems still, but now a lot of the images that can be really problematic for a lot of people are available just at the click of a mouse. I mean, they're so easy to access. So we really have to watch out for screens in our home. And the best thing is to have all the screens in public places where people are constantly walking by, you know, looking over the shoulder where people have their screens. And so what this means is basically that any type of mobile device has its own unique challenges, whether that's a laptop, an iPad, or even a smartphone. I mean, I would say that it's really not fair to an adolescent teenager to give him the ability to go off into a private area with a device that can literally connect to any image on the internet within seconds. I could never have handled that level of temptation when I was that age. I don't think it's just for us. I think we do a great injustice to our sons if we think that's okay. Filters and parental controls, I mean, use them. They're helpful. I mean, the more important thing is the relationship between yourself and your son. I mean, we should use the human means, the filters and parental controls and the computers, stuff like that. You know, but the best thing a filter can really do is it can help an honest kid to stay honest. It's not a substitute for really that personal relationship that should be present there. As your sons get older, they're going to be, how are we doing on time? They're going to be getting to the age where, you know, a couple things will be happening. They'll be thinking, hopefully praying about their vocation, what it is that God wants for their life. And they're going to be at the age where they start to really notice girls, and dating becomes a possibility. And so teens and dating, you know, become this whole another dynamic. And as you continue to, you know, have that close relationship with your son, there's ways that you and your wife will have to get together and figure out how to handle that. I mean, one way would be parents to say, you will have no interactions whatsoever with any women ever until you are out of the house. And there will be no dating, you cannot even, and that's kind of crazy and ridiculous. But at the same time, do you really want your adolescent high schooler to be into this close personal relationship with a girl who, that by its nature, anytime men and women are together and the relationship is close and personal, I mean, that is ordered towards marriage. And it's only going to ultimately be able to be fulfilled in marriage. So really, two people coming together and starting to have those close personal ties, I mean, it's possible. I mean, there are some high school sweethearts which grow up to end up someday marrying and works out well. I know some. I think that's the exception rather than the rule. And for every one story like that, there's many others where hearts are broken and a lot of other problems emerge from that. So the best is for parents to plan group activities. Group of guys, group of girls get together and they have a board game night where they play Taboo or whatever and have milk and cookies, and then everyone goes off to their own houses. Okay, like that's kind of fun. Or ice skating or an event like that. Parents can get involved in doing that. Or maybe the guys prepare a dinner and serve a dinner to a bunch of girls that they invite to their house. I mean, there's things like this I can mention that I've seen have worked well. I mean, I think it is reasonable for parents to say, let their sons know that dating a girl in high school in a really personal, intimate way is a really rough thing, and that could be a really bad idea because of the nature of that relationship. But at the same time, to let them know, marriage is a beautiful thing, and God may call you to marriage. And it's just very difficult to try to head down that path in a relationship with somebody when you're not yet ready to take on the full responsibilities of marrying and what that would mean. Okay, so I want to stop there and see if anyone else has any comments, questions, just other thoughts on this topic, other notes of experience that maybe some other fathers here have.
A question.
Yes.
Do you need to talk to girls, to the mother?
I think that's best. My wife has given the talk to the girls, and that's a more natural thing. I think when the father talks to the son and the mother talks to the daughters, and I think the fathers, one of the things that fathers can do for daughters, which is just absolutely tremendous in this area, is just to treat them like little princesses sometimes. Every once in a while, take your daughter out, hold the door to the car open for her, let her get in, close the door, go around, drive her to the little coffee shop or whatever, let her pick out a little treat, sit down with her, and just ask her, how things are going. What's your favorite class? What do you like to? What are you reading these days? What do you like? Oh, that's pretty neat. Yeah, okay. And then finish up and go back, treat her with refinement, let her get out, and I can tell you, if you do that, every single boy that will ever aspire to date your daughter, she will compare him in her mind to how you treated her when you did that. So that's very powerful. And but it's also so delightful and easy to do. That with daughters, guys have it easy, Yeah.
I have a question about James, your thoughts on James Dobson. So Dobson has a book called Raising Boys, and he talks a little about sexual development of boys. And he's got one thing in there that sort of shocked me a little bit, and just want to hear your thoughts. And that is, he thinks that the ages like 2 or 3 to 5 are pretty key in sexual development of boys, especially identification as a man to your father. And he sort of recommended or said it wasn't bad to like shower with your child, or have a degree of nakedness that's acceptable, where the child knows as a man that you're also a man, and to have that as a pretty natural thing in the household up to a certain age of like 5. I found that somewhat shocking, also coming from a guy like James Dobson. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I think there are arguments for it intuitively, but it's culturally kind of unusual for us. So, what do you think?
That's interesting. I've never thought about that before. The one thing I will say is you can kind of see, like my 2-year-old son right now is just, I think, starting to figure out that he's a boy. And so, like for some, I don't think it's a problem for him to, if he comes wandering into our bedroom and comes around towards our bathroom when I'm going to the bathroom, he might be incredibly curious about that. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like if he was a little older, I'd be like, privacy, modesty, no, forget it. But I don't know about showering with him. Like I wouldn't do that. But I guess I can say all I can say is that I can see that there's something about that age where he's been, breastfed by his mom. He's been, nurtured that way. And he starts to develop an understanding that he's a boy, and he's a man. And I think fathers close to their sons at that age is very important. Just taking the little guy, throwing him up in the air, catching him. I mean, mom's not going to do that, right? But dad does that, and dad's kind of strong, and so I've always, at least with all my children, they've always kind of naturally, just in the course of the family and the normal natural relations in a family, have come to be very normal, and it hasn't been a problem. We've never done anything like intentionally showered with the kids.
I have a girl-boy-girl, so you had 2 boys to start, and so my son, this happened to my son, we didn't shower together, mind you.
No, that's the stopping part, but
well, it's funny you say it, because the age was exactly right, pretty much. I was like around 4.5. So he started to figure out, we had Maddie, then him, and then we had Juliet, and then, he'd go by, you see the diapers getting changed, right? And Mom, Maddie, Juliet, him, and he knows that he doesn't look like they look. And so one day he comes to me and he's pretty furtive, and he's, looking around. He's, Daddy, do you have a penis?
my 3-year-old has been saying.
Well, yeah. So this is like I go, yes, I do. Do you? Great. Carry on. So, but here's the thing.
We're in this together.
Every day for like 2 weeks, I get up first. Alarm goes off. He hears it, and I'm on the first floor. He's on the second floor. And Emery would still be in bed or be down with the baby or whatever. I would open up, and he'd be right there waiting for me to come out, and there's no one else awake. And he would say, Daddy, do you have a penis? Still not. He'd say, yes, I do. So for 2 weeks, he's doing this finally. But you can tell he's a really sweet kid, but he's kind of, he knows he's different. He doesn't know how he's different. He wants to know that, he's not weird, right? So he finally gets it. So fast forward a few months, and I overhear him talking to Juliet, this girl. And I hear her somehow, she's talking about, you have a penis? And Blaze goes, yeah. And then she goes, this is the best part, she goes, does Daddy have a penis? He goes, Daddy has lots of penis. You guys thought you were tough.
I was going to say, Tom, if you read the Reston Center emails, one of them had a link to Mary Suarez's talks. This is last year, I think, for something in the. I don't know if y'all are familiar with her. She's kind of specializes, or apparently it was on one of the emails y'all sent on the development of gender, and one of the tips that she gave, and it was an MP3 lecture, was in that obviously she encouraged men to be naked around other men, as well as urinating with them, because then they actually see the male genitalia as a reproductive. I mean, not in a reproductive sense, but in a urinary tract sense, and actually will learn to get out of diapers faster. in poorer cultures where people don't wear diapers, they actually see each other go to the bathroom, and so they actually are much faster to get out of diapers in these cultures.
I guess the principle behind the question is just like kind of like nakedness. I think it's kind of interesting because in American male culture, for good reasons, like that's just kind of weird, just intuitively. Like,
Yeah.
No, I don't want to shower with my little boy because that's just weird. But the idea of the principle behind the observation of and the connection to the male genitalia at those particular ages. Now, I think the doctor would say like 3 to 5 is a special time of like this proto-adolescence, where it sort of repeats itself later on in a more extreme form. And so after that, you're not talking about no more of this like studied nakedness together. They said there's something about that. That's the principle of say the showering is totally incidental. It's just
I think there is something to that principle. I think there's something to it, and I think that if the father was like super uptight and thought that he was a little guy, he's 3 years old, ended up seeing him when he was going to the bathroom, and that would be like, oh my gosh, it's not modest like that. For that age, that's not what's going on there at all. That's something different.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, I was an elected prosecutor for 4 terms, and if you were accused of doing something and you told the detective that I shower with my son when he's 3 to 5 because that's a special time in his sexual development, you're gonna have a roommate named Bubba.
I'm a prosecutor.
The jury, well then you know.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's why the showering thing is not the essential thing. The essential thing is the nakedness principle. I think that's why it's the shocking example of doubts.
I think the cultural point that you bring up is very strong.
Yeah.
And as do you. You run around, in the jungles or in the Philippines or whatever, and you don't have diapers, then nobody's doing it. But in America, be careful.
Yeah.
If anybody would, you don't want to go to jail leaving here.
Yeah, but even if your kid says something like class, wouldn't do it.
The talk that was just brought up a second ago, it was, I think, from the Parenting for the Purpose conference that happened about a year ago. And I know the links were up, I think, on the Reston website for a while. And
they got taken down.
They're gone now. But it was like a series of talks, at least 2 or 3 of them were relevant to exactly what we're talking about now. So if anybody did download them, if you didn't, I can email them to you. I guess that's intellectually property-wise okay.
You're talking about Mary Suarez.
Very Suarez.
Yeah, very Suarez.
You talk about gender identification.
Yeah.
And the role of parenting to clearly differentiate masculinity and femininity. That's right. To offset gender confusion.
Gender differentiation.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say on this, I forget if these Dobson are aware, but I know there's good research about this that somebody recommends that dads with boys, you roughhouse to the point where it scares mom a little bit, and you and the boy are chuckling about it, and the boys gets that I'm on dad's team, roughly speaking, and that the roughhousing is an important thing, and also that my own natural little boy nature is a good thing.
Yeah.
So it's good to be a boy, and I am a boy, and I'm on dad's team.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Better than shower.
The prosecutor agrees.
You're not naked when you're rough
I'm
out.
kind of.
That's an option. Good question.
I find these conversations to be extremely interesting. I was, maybe I tend to talk about my personal experience a lot, but I was raised in a very Catholic, Mexican, conservative family, where my sister was not allowed to show her belly button because it was like sexual. And I saw, we then moved to Europe where showing your belly button was the coolest thing to do, and where everyone is showing belly button, cleavage, whatever, at age 16, 17. I saw my sister go through rebellion because she was torn between what my mom had told her for many years and then what all her friends were doing. So that's maybe the first question I have for you is, how would you handle a boy that you've raised with, trying to keep all the sex out of their minds and kind of block that which is maybe your way of educating your boys. I'm not sure I'm really a partisan of that. But how would you do that when all of a sudden they go to school and they see these young 17-year-old girls with skirts and maybe cleavages?
So first of all, one of the messages, and this is a very important question, very important point. I think it is very important that we do not give our sons the message that sexuality is this incredibly taboo thing that we just need to be kind of Jansenist, just totally, we can't, like, we have to totally repress anything that has to do with that. That's the way that we respond to it, okay? I think that's not correct. If you look at, like, St. John Paul II's theology of the body, for example, his commentaries on Genesis, his writings, Love and Responsibility, there's a real sense in which the full expression of human sexuality, whether it's lived out in a vocation to marriage or whether it's lived out in a celibate vocation, is one which is integral to who we are as a person and helps us to be able to love and to really be a man in the right way. And so, the message to our sons, I think has to be fundamentally a positive one. That this is a great gift of God. Okay, that this is something that's good. The problem is precisely when people pervert this, and there's a lot of examples of that out there. This is something that is incredibly life-giving, but it is meant, it's ordered towards and meant to be fulfilled in marriage or to be fulfilled in a higher gift of the self through a celibate vocation. And that is the fundamental message that's there, I think.
I mean, sorry, I find this very interesting. So, I'm just concerned that if I teach my son this theory, which is almost theology and in real practice, when he goes to high school and when his hormones go crazy, that it's going to be really hard for him to find that balance.
Well, I think the important thing too is just, you don't want to present a vision that is so goody-goody, if you will, that it doesn't take into account the fact that even the best people have their struggles and their falls, and that's okay. King David, he was a dude. I mean, he was pretty awesome, but he really royally messed up. And God is incredibly rich in mercy. And there's a way that, going to confession, taking advantage of that incredible grace that our Lord wants to give us, being close to Our Lady. I mean, St. Joseph, I love to think of him as a vigorous man. I mean, St. Joseph Maria thought of St. Joseph, he said, I respect people who like to think of him as this old guy.
Right.
But I like to think of him as in the prime of his youth. Because, that's love. I mean, that's a man's love.
Right.
And yeah, you mess up, you don't get it quite right, okay, I understand. You come to me, I'm not going to jump down your throat, I'm not going to yell at you, I'm not going to say, I can't believe, no, it's, understand here, but our Lord, his heart's wide open for you.
I'm just concerned that one day he's going to do something and he's going to feel a lot of guilt, that confession might really help him kind of get rid of that guilt. But I'm also concerned that if I don't have I want to say an open door policy kind of thing, where it's you live in the world you live in. Most of the kids out there are promiscuous by the age of, 16. So I've heard horrible stories in public, schools.
Yeah.
I want to find a way to prepare my kid to make the best decision, have the best judgment.
Yep.
And I teaching them those morals and the principles of faith and respect. Keeping your heart to your future wife. I think I've been heartbroken a few times, and it's the worst feeling in the world, and I don't wish it to any of my children. But bottom line is having that balance between real life and theology and theory is really, in my opinion, what I feel is the ideal way. But it's complicated because
Yeah, the one thing you said that,
everyone has different opinions about these things.
yeah, the one thing you said that I really agree with is that open door policy. I mean, the whole thing about getting in there and getting in there first and establishing that relationship with your sons, that they can come and talk to you, that is incredibly important. And try to have the heart of a father, towards your sons in that.
I think it's also useful to cite one idea from St. John Paul II when he talks about the beauty of a woman created by God as a gift for one man, and that is intended not for your consumption or to satisfy your appetite, but is to bring about a faithful, committed marriage. And you see a beautiful woman, and you have to think, that's God's gift to someone, and not to me, but to someone, right? So I have no right to turn her into an object of consumption of my lust.
That's amazing.
And it helps young men a lot to hear that. A lot. And I've used that to help them turn the corner.
Where's that from?
It's in Love and Responsibility. It helps them turn the corner on chastity.
Well, the problem today is you see naked women on TV every 5 minutes.
Well, that's right.
So, I mean,
Time for dinner. Thank you.